As I say, my name is Kelly Self and I am the project coordinator here at HEP. I'll tell you a bit about HEP. Who are we? So it's a shortened word for Higher Education Progression Partnership, and we're an organisation funded by both universities in Sheffield, so Sheffield Hallam and the University of Sheffield, and we work across South Yorkshire and North East Derbyshire, going to lots of different schools in the region to talk about higher education and opportunities in that arena. So today we have got Stephen from Student Finance England. So I'm going to hand over to him. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but he's going to take over and talk to you all about the wonderful world of student finance.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for taking the time this evening to come and attend the session with us today. We're going to be looking at Student Finance England and what's available for you through the next academic year. So for our September starts. So if you just bear with me 1 second. So what we're going to look at today is what support you can get, how you access that support, how and when you'll repay, and we're going to look at some budgeting and some other key messages as well. And then, as Sally said, if you want to put any questions you have in the chat, we'll have time at the end for us to review those and answer any questions. You will have access to the slides through the recording and the online system with the universities, because there's lots of information here that I think you'll find useful and will aid your research and help you get the very best out of your journey through higher education in the coming years. So Student Finance England is a not-for-profit organisation that is run by its principal shareholders, which are the UK Government, Department of Education, the Welsh Government, Scottish Government and Northern Ireland Assembly. So we're able to support students with funding to help them with the big costs that they'll have while they go to university, one being tuition fees and the other living costs. What we'll be able to offer can depend on your course and where you live and study, your household income and personal circumstances. So we'll talk about all of those in a little bit more detail as we go through the session today. Because we're a government funded organisation and we are spending taxpayers' money, there are some regulations that we need to follow to ensure that we're meeting government expectations on eligibility for funding. So students, to become eligible for student finance, need to have settled status in the UK. That means that you can live here without any home office restriction. We also need you to be resident in England on the first day of the first academic year of your course and be living in the UK for the 3 years immediately prior to this date. There are some exceptions to these rules. There are different rules that apply to students who came from the EU prior to the last day of Brexit, when we actually formally left the European Union and have settled or pre-settled status. And there's also some different rules that apply to students who hold refugee, humanitarian protection, stateless person, or have come here through one of the Ukraine leave schemes. They won't need that 3 years ordinary residence in UK. There's loads more information you can see on our website at gov.uk/student finance who qualifies, and that's a great place to go if you've got any questions or queries regarding eligibility. So let's have a look at the support you can get when you go to university starting in September this year. We're going to talk about a tuition fee, which is what will help you with the tuition fee that the university will charge. We have a maintenance loan. That's what will help you with your living costs while you're at university. And there's some other forms of additional support as well. So the maximum a UK university can charge you in tuition fee for this academic year, 24-25, is £9,250. The good news is we have that tuition fee loan, which can cover that fee that's charged by the provider. You don't have to pay anything up front, and we pay that tuition fee to the institution, the university or college, on your behalf. And this isn't means tested, so it means it's not reliant on your household income. With tuition fees, it's important to remember how we fund or calculate the amount of support that we can offer. So tuition fee loan support for your first higher education qualification, we will fund the course duration, whether that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 years. The example on the slide is for a 3-year standard undergraduate course. We give you a gift year. So that equals 4 years support or the course duration plus a year. And that gift year is in case you have to withdraw or if you have to resit one of the years. And that means that you're able to get the tuition fee support. So let's look at the maintenance loan now. Oh, sorry, excuse me. So as I mentioned before, maintenance loan is designed to help students with their living costs. All eligible students are entitled to get some maintenance loan support. The amount you get depends on your household income and where you live and when you study. Unlike the tuition fee loan, we pay the maintenance loan directly to the student's bank account each term. Maintenance loan and tuition fees do need to be repaid, but not until you've left university and your income is over the relevant threshold. And we'll cover that in a bit more detail when we look at repayment. So let's have a look at the maximum amount of loan that you're likely to be able to receive in the next academic year, 24-25. So you can see that the maximum amount varies depending upon where you live while you're studying. If you choose to stay at home, the maximum loan you can be entitled to is 8,610. You see that increases for elsewhere and courses in London. All eligible students will receive or are entitled to receive that non-income assessed element of the maintenance loan. The remainder is income assessed against your household income. So household income is the income of parents, step-parents, parents' partner, wife, husband, civil partner, or partner that you normally live with. So once you've completed your application, we'll ask your sponsors, so whoever's looking after you, whether that be parent or partner, to submit some information as well about the household income. And you can see here from this slide, as the household income increases, so the amount of maintenance support that the student will receive decreases. It's important to call out here students who are care leaver or are estranged are non-means tested, so they will receive the maximum amount of funding when they go to university. A really good place to start your research on how much funding you're going to get from Student Finance England is to use our student finance calculator, and you can see the link on the slide at the bottom there. And that's a great place to actually get a real idea for you how much you're likely to receive from student finance, and that helps you start that budgeting journey. We have got some links in the presentation tonight where you can find out more detailed information. So from the student, how you're assessed and you're paid. There's also a section for partners and parents who are supporting the application, so that financial assessment of your household income and the evidence that you'll need to provide. Both of these links are really useful. And again, it's worthwhile spending a little bit of time finding out exactly what that household assessment means or the information that we're likely to ask you for. As I mentioned before, we do have students who are not financially supported by parents or partner. We would class these students as independent. There's further reading. I've put in the link there for the UCAS website. I actually find their information on this really useful. And I would urge you, if you feel that this would apply to yourselves, then that's a really good place to start to find any information you need and how you can apply for the funding to support yourselves. And I've also put in a link there for estranged students looking at standalone. Their website is really useful. It's full of great information about that higher education journey if you find yourselves estranged from your parents. And also you've got Propel, becomecharity.org, again, to help if you're a care leaver, just to navigate that journey going through higher education. So let's look at the extra support that's available to students from Student Finance England in addition to the tuition fee and maintenance loan. So there's extra financial support for students who have a disability, long-term health condition, mental health conditions or specific learning difficulties. It's called Disabled Student Allowance, and we'll talk about that in a moment's time. We can also support students who have children or dependent adults. We can provide additional finance if you're studying overseas as part of a UK course or go on a clinical placement. And if you're thinking of completing a nursing, midwifery or allied health profession course, then the NHS provides additional support as well. Also, it's important to call out here that universities and colleges provide bursaries and scholarships. And I would urge all of you, when you're doing your research or thinking about the university of choice, to have a look and just see if you're eligible for any of these bursaries or scholarships. The money is out there, and I think that these days when someone's offering free money, it's a really good idea to do a bit of research and see if you're eligible. The eligibility for these bursaries and scholarships can be academic results, household income, course choice. It can also be first to university and family, things like that. So it is worth having a look. So disabled student allowance, or DSA. As you can see from the slide here, it's designed to provide help towards additional costs a student may face due to their disability, long-term health condition, mental health condition, or specific learning difficulty. Essentially, if you're getting help now at school or college because of one of these conditions, then you are likely going to need help when you go to university. You need to apply for disabled student allowance. You can do so. You can start the process online, but there's a form to complete. And we'll also ask you to submit some medical evidence as well to support the application. Once we've received that, we will assess the application and invite you to attend an independent needs assessment. The assessment isn't a test, it's really a chat with a professional in the sector who can look at the support you've had so far. It can also discuss the type of course that you are going to be attending, whether it's outdoors, a sports degree, something like that, where you'll be training or very activity based, or whether it's more academic and more lecture theatre based. And if you attend the needs assessment in person, then they'll be able to show you or let you try some of the specialist equipment or support that's available. There's a link there for further information on disabled student allowance, the application journey, and what's available. As I mentioned before, we're also able to help students with dependents. Excuse me. We have a childcare grant that can assist with up to 85% of actual childcare costs, subject to a weekly limit. We've got the parents learning allowance and adult dependence grant as well. And there's some further information through our student finance /extra help. And you can also find out more specific information about childcare grant, parents learning allowance and adult dependence grant. Mentioned before about the learning support fund that's provided by the NHS. As you can see here, for students who are taking a nursing midwifery or allied healthcare professional course, you are entitled to apply for the Learning Support Fund, which gives you a £5,000 training grant per academic year. There's additional parental support, and there's the ability to claim back travel expenses if you are having to travel to and from placement. And there's also some additional financial hardship support as well. So I've popped in the link there. If that is the route that you're considering going down, you apply for the Learning Support Fund separately to your student finance. They tend to open a little bit later in the year, so we will open late February, early March for student finance applications. They say they'll be maybe a couple of months behind us, but it's always a good idea to keep on top of that. And they pay that money to you in the same way that we do. So they will pay you a third of that amount every semester that you're in university. Let's look at applications now, the application journey. We would prefer that students apply online when we open. Really, just because it's quicker, the application comes straight to us. We're not relying on the postal service. It also means that there's less likely to be errors made during the application process by yourselves when you're completing the form. Our assessors at our Darlington office will review your application and we'll send you a letter confirming the amount of tuition fee, maintenance support, and childcare grant, adult dependence grant, etc. To let you know what you're entitled to. And then once you've confirmed in university, you've confirmed in attendance, we will start that payment process of tuition fee directly to the university and maintenance loan directly to the student. Unfortunately, too many students apply late for their finance and possibly could have no way to pay for course accommodation at the start of the term. Please don't let that be you. It's a very serious point. We do see a lot of students struggling, particularly at this time of year where their student finance still hasn't been agreed and they haven't been able to pay the university any tuition fee yet. They haven't had any maintenance support to help with living costs. So you can imagine the stress that these students are finding themselves under. One of the biggest myths about applying for student finance is that you need a confirmed place to apply for your finance. Nothing could be further from the truth. We just need your number one choice on UCAS, or if you're applying directly to a university or college, just their details and the course that you're attending. I would always recommend that as a family or as a group with the student and the sponsor, you sit down together and you just complete the student's application first online. At the end of that application, they'll be asked if anyone's sponsoring or supporting their application. They'll enter your email address at that point, and we'll email you and ask you if you want to support that student, and then you follow that process. And once it's done and you've received that letter, that's everything done for student finance. So you can get on with the important stuff in this year, which is completing your studies, getting the grades that you want, attending open days and offer days, and getting yourself ready for enjoying that first year at university. Really important student experience as well as the academic attainment. You can register to get an alert when our application service opens, and that's via the studentroom.co.uk/student finance/sign up to be the first to know when full-time undergraduate student finance is open. Bit of a mouthful, but it's worth doing. It means we'll send you an email as soon as we open and that's when you can start the application process. You can also choose to follow us on Facebook or X, and the same thing will happen. We'll send a notification, or there'll be a notification on there that lets you know that we're open and you can start applying for your finance. If you decide not to go, it doesn't matter. The application will lapse and we just apply again the next academic year when you do decide to go to university. If you decide to change the university that you decide to go to prior to going, just let us know. You can update your application online, or you can phone our contact centre and one of the team will be happy to help you change those details to ensure that we pay the right tuition fee to the right university. So, as I mentioned before, we're looking at eligibility and there are some rules that we need to follow. So when you're getting ready to complete your application, it's worth getting this information together. So if you've got an in-date UK passport, that's grand because we can use the passport number to confirm your identity. If you don't have an in-date passport, don't worry. You'll be able to upload a copy of your birth certificate to us and we can use that. You will need your bank account details and national insurance number. Your bank account details are important to us. That's how we will pay you. Your national insurance number is important to us because that's how we track your earnings and when we look at repayment. And as I mentioned to you before, when we look at the household income, that will be for the prior tax year. So in this case, it would be 22-23. We will be looking for the financial information from. If your household income decreases by at least 15% in the current tax year versus the tax year that we assess over, then we can reassess the student's application based on that new information, and it's likely that the student will receive more maintenance support because of that. You complete your application via gov.uk/student finance. That's also the hub where students will see if any updates on their application, see if there are any outstanding tasks or anything that's required, further information required. When you're completing your application, it will ask you if it's okay for us to send you text or email notification. And that's probably a really good idea because that's how we'll notify you that something has changed with your application. So it's worth having a look to see if there's anything you need to do before we can award that funding. As I mentioned before, we've have further information on the student room where you can register for that email update. You can follow us on X or Facebook. We also have a page on UCAS, which is really useful. If you've already completed your UCAS application, you'll be used to navigating that site, and you've probably used some of the information already, but I actually really like the way that it's laid out and the way that the language is chosen. If you prefer to watch rather than read, we've got a whole set of YouTube films as well that, again, I think are really useful and will help you navigate your student journey. We also have a campaign page, and that's worth a look because there's loads of further information about how you will get paid your student finance, navigating clearing, some further information on cost of living, understanding your application status. So when we're sending you notifications, what does that mean? And there's also parts on there as well for the sponsor as well. So parent and partner, this is also a great place to go and look to see if there's any further information to help you understand the student finance process, the application, but also your student's journey as well. Okay, so let's look at repayment now. So you won't need to make a repayment to your student loan until your income is over a set threshold. This is set now at £25,000 a year until April 2027. From April 2027, the threshold will be adjusted annually in line with inflation, so retail price index. There's no interest applied to the loan. There used to be 3% added, but that's been removed. If you study a full-time course, you're due to start repaying from the April after you complete or leave your course. And you'll repay 9% of any income you earn over that threshold. And if you're employed in the UK, those deductions will be made through the pay-as-you-earn tax system. So that deduction will show on the left-hand side of your pay packet. If your income drops below that threshold, your repayments will stop. And that's for any reason. If you're made redundant, you're dismissed, you take some leave for maternity or paternity, you just drop your hours and you work a bit part-time, so your earnings will be under that threshold. You won't make any repayments. If you never earn over £25,000 a year, you will never make a repayment. And any outstanding balance is cancelled 48 years after entering repayment. And that 40-year clock starts ticking from when you leave or withdraw from your university or college, not from when you would make a first payment. So this table here just gives you an idea of what that monthly repayment would look like. So if I'm earning £28,000 a year once I've graduated from university, the 9% will be deducted from the £3,000. So that's my earnings over that £25,000 threshold. So my monthly repayment would look like £22 a month. And as I mentioned, that's removed through the PAYE system. So that deduction is made before you would receive the balance of your pay now. So it's worth noting that's what that will look like. And as I mentioned before, when your income drops below that threshold, your repayments will stop. So just have a look now at some budgeting and some other key messages that I think are quite important. So by now you'll have seen the slides around maintenance loan or the amount that Student Finance England will be able to support yourself or your son or daughter with, or whoever you're caring for. It's important to think about the expenses that the student is likely to encounter during their studies. So the easy ones are accommodation, books, essential study materials or course materials. And then you've got some other costs that maybe you're less aware of, like TV license. My daughter, who's in university, is in year 2 now. She took her TV because they've been sharing a house this year. She didn't know such a thing as a TV license existed, and she does now because she had to pay for it. And things like contents insurance as well. So it's worth understanding what the landlord is taking care of, or what you will need to do, or what's covered by your own home insurance currently that's taken out of the property. So some research to do there. But by understanding what support you'll receive from us, if you're eligible for any bursary or scholarship from the university, you can then start to plan if there is a shortfall, what is going to meet that cost. So is the student going to work prior to going to university? Are they going to work while they're at university? And what's that going to look like? Or if you're going to support the student, what that contribution is going to look like. But now more than ever, with the rising cost of living in the UK we've experienced over the last couple of years, budgeting is key. So it's really, really worth sitting down and starting to plan so that you can plan to get the very best out of your experience while at university. SaveTheStudent.org has got some great resources around budget calculators, etc. That's a great place to look at. It's worth noting that the average student across the UK spends an average of £1,078 a month. Every year, the SaveTheStudent.org runs a student money survey. So you can see from this chart what the average student is spending their money on. And I think this is a good place to start. There'll be some you'll be able to remove straight away because they're not applicable to you. But for me, takeaways and eating out is a big one. It's very expensive. We can plan our meals. We can write a shopping list. We can plan to bulk cook and freeze. It's about where and when you shop as well to make the best use of the items that are reduced, or which supermarkets offer the best value for money. You can look at things like going out and saying, well, I won't spend £70 a month on going out. But just remember, these days you can't spend cash. Everything's on a card. So if you are going out, it's very difficult to keep track of your budget. Back in my day, and I'm quite old, we used to take cash out to the pub or when we were going out with friends. And when your notes turned to coins, you knew it was time to get a bag of chips and go home. And that's been restricted for you now because you are going to spend on a card, so it's harder to budget. So when you set your monthly budget or your weekly budget, it's worth thinking, what happens if I spend more on a particular item than I planned to, and how am I going to recover that? Because you're going to need to make this money last through the term. There's loads of great resources out there. SaveTheStudent.org is just one. Martin Lewis does an absolutely fantastic section on student finance generally, but about budgeting, he's got a great section, loads of links off to other sites that offer information. All of the high street banks will offer great information about student accounts and student money, so budgeting, making the very best out of the funding that you have. There's also studentspace.org, and again, through their wellbeing section, there's a whole section about managing money, how to budget, what happens or what you can do if you do get money problems. And again, that's worth a read and understanding what help or support is out there for you. So the Student Money Survey also comments the fact that students save an average of £2,650 before they go to university. And that sounds a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But over a term, that doesn't go very far if you think what a weekly shop looks like. If you're lucky enough to take a car with you and travel, your insurance and putting petrol in the car, that will soon run that funding down. 13% of students never budgeted to go to university, and that worries me, particularly in this day and age where the cost of everything is so high. You really need to be smart with your money when you go to university. You really need to make sure that it lasts, because you don't want to have to leave university because you've run out of money. And as I mentioned before, academic attainment is a really important part of going to university, but that student experience is massive as well. It helps you grow up, it rounds you as an adult and shapes you for the future. So I'm going to bring my presentation to a close now, just leave you with a couple of things to remember. So research all the support that's available to you and make the right choice. Look at the funding that's available from ourselves, any bursary support that's available from your university. If you are thinking about working while you're at university and you're on an open day, the person you're following in the hoodie with the university's name on and student ambassador, they're getting paid by the university for that work. So it's worth asking them, how do you get onto this kind of work? And they will tell you where the good places are to work, where the bad places are. And they'll also be able to talk to you about accommodation, because the cost of accommodation or the standard of accommodation can vary widely depending upon who's offering the property or the halls for you. Please apply on time and apply online. Don't wait for confirmed offers. Apply to us as soon as you can, so you've got certainty that that funding is in place and will be paid to the student and the university in that first semester when you will need that money, and you don't want the stress and anxiety of still chasing that application when you've left home. Remember, with repayment, you don't pay anything back until you earn over the set threshold, which is £25,000 a year. And it's based on what you earn, not what you owe. As I mentioned before, if you drop below that threshold, you will stop making repayments for whatever reason. So thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm happy to see if there's any questions or comments we have in the chat. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. We have got quite a number of questions. Some of them I have been able to answer, but some of them are, sorry, over to you. One of them was, let me just go back to it. It was, what happens if parents are divorced, one is remarried, and the household incomes are drastically different? And obviously the young person spends similar
Of
amount of
course.
time at each.
Yeah, it's a very common question, and what we ask the student to do is to tell us which of the parents they spend the most time with. The household income assessment will be based then on that sole parent. We may ask that parent for some further information. So typically, you get the 15% discount on your council tax. So a copy of that letter, or some other evidence that you are the only adult in that household that we would count as a sponsor.
Lovely, thank you. The next one is, what support is there for high income but high outgoings when it comes to applying for maintenance loans?
Unfortunately, the assessment of maintenance loan is assessed on household income. There isn't any scope in the regulations to account for high outgoings as well. And I'm exactly in that boat. What I earn, I pretty much spend, and that's committed spend. So it's things like, Sky, broadband, mortgage, insurance, car insurance, and that's why we encourage you to start thinking about budgeting as soon as you can.
Lovely, thank you. The next one is, someone's got twins, so a double amount of expenses. So they're obviously both looking to start this year. Will the support available take into account that having two going at the same time?
It does, and not just for two students going at the same time. So you could have a student in year 1 and year 3, depending on when you had your children. We do take it into account based on the household contribution. It's quite complicated, not very easy to explain. Really, it's our system that takes care of all the calculations now. But essentially, what will happen is your first child will complete their application, and they'll be asked to link you as sponsors. And then your second child will complete their application and ask. They'll also link you as sponsors. The system picks up that you're sponsoring more than one child, and then that calculation is completed, and then the notification of entitlement will the notification of entitlement letter will reflect the fact that there'll be slightly more maintenance support. It's not massive, I have to say, but the sooner you apply, the sooner you'll understand exactly what you have, and then you can start again making that plan for the student journey through higher education.
Lovely. Okay. Sorry, another one is, if you apply for finance before getting a place, can you choose to not receive the funds if the place doesn't materialise? I'm assuming yes, you can. You don't take the funds.
Absolutely, yeah. So typically you can have students who decide to take a gap year, or unfortunately you don't get the results that you thought you were going to get, and you're unable to one, either secure the place that you intended or find a place through clearing. And in that case there, we only pay funds away once the university has confirmed you as in attendance, and that's a fairly big deal. You'll know when that's happening. Usually if you're in halls, it's when you get your room key and your pass and things like that generally.
Okay. One of the questions I have answered, and I think I'm right, is obviously a family member attending a college, not university. Student finance, it's for degrees, isn't it? And above, it's higher education that this is all linked to.
Yeah. So at a lower level, up to 4, then you'd be expecting adult learning loan or something like that. But we're talking about degrees or HNDs, HNCs, or foundation degrees.
Yeah, lovely. Is the parental income on top earnings or the amount they actually receive?
So it's your taxable income. So it would be your salary or income from other sources. It might be rental income. It might be investments and things like that. So typically it's your taxable income. There's more information on that if you follow the link regarding sponsoring student application. They'll let you know what income we are interested in and what we're not.
Lovely. When do the applications start and finish? I think you might have said that in the...
Yeah, so unfortunately, we don't have a defined launch date. I'd love it if we did. Our launch is dependent on the work that the governments of the UK ask us to do. So we are looking somewhere between the end, so mid-February, mid-March. We do have a soft deadline, which is May, the end of May, and that's where we encourage students to apply by to ensure that they have funding when they go to university. I would always, and through personal experience, apply as soon as you can.
Lovely. One of them is about interest payable. It says, can you confirm, please, that there is no interest payable on the loan? I thought the interest was quite high. Has this stopped now? There is interest on the loan, isn't it?
So the loan balance will increase by retail price index only. So students now only repay in real terms what they've borrowed. We used to, on previous schemes, they used to charge 3% interest on top of RPI as well, but that's been removed.
And that moves with the threshold, doesn't it, as inflation?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. And then another one is the interest-free status guaranteed, or could the government change its status after the loan is taken?
I've no idea. You'd have to ask the government, and I can't speak for them. It's Department for Education that set the regulations. We're just the provider.
Yeah, okay. Someone said another one about twins. Do they get slightly higher maintenance loan, as they will be supporting more than one child? Fine. Actually, you've just gone through that one, I think, in terms of
slightly higher.
Yeah. Is the student savings taken into account?
It depends. It's interest from generally no. But I would just double check with what income is required. It is non-tax. It's taxable income that we're interested in, so it depends on how much they're receiving. Generally, though, with students, their income isn't tested. So if you've got a part-time job or you're at university, we don't take that into account as far as maintenance is concerned.
Lovely. What proof is needed when applying as a care leaver?
So as a care leaver, you would need to supply a letter from your key worker or from a local authority that will just confirm that you were under the care of the local authority for the defining periods that we qualify. They're quite used to writing those letters, so if you just let them know, they'll be able to send that to us or send it to you, and you can send it to us. It's quite important, really, because that also, once we've confirmed the independent status through care leaver, that will allow you to access further support and bursaries from the university. I won't talk about the wraparound service that universities in the Northwest do too much today, other than they're really, really good at looking after vulnerable students.
Yeah. I'd put on another one where someone had asked about care leaver. It's about doing the research, because there's lots of different bursaries, but generally they are very, very accommodating and supportive of underrepresented groups, which care leavers are one of those groups.
Yeah.
One of them is, if deposits are required for the students' accommodation and finance hasn't kicked in, parents obviously can't afford to pay that deposit. Is that something that student finance support, or how does that happen?
We haven't got any facility to release funding earlier if deposits are required. From my own experience, and it's only very narrow because I've only got one daughter in university at the moment, but the deposit for her house, for her halls, was quite small. So for next year, she's secured her accommodation with a £90 deposit.
Right.
But that you would need to talk to the university. Maybe there's something that they can do via financial hardship or any bursary support. Tends to be from families from a low income. There may be some support that's available, but I would definitely be talking to the accommodation provider and the institution to see what they can do to help.
Yeah, they do have hardship funds. Most institutions will have that to support you if it's needed. Now, I know you've said about the divorced parents. So if they've got 50-50, so they're not, set at one, would they just go with?
We just pick one.
Yeah, just pick one. Yeah, there you go.
Most parents and students figure that one out.
Yeah.
We've got no way of checking where you spend most of your time with.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Can you choose to pay more than 9% when you are earning over that threshold?
You can choose to make additional repayments. We've got a repayment site now that you can visit. Before you make any additional payments to your student loan, I would recommend you get some financial advice. And Martin Lewis is a good place to go and have a look for things like that. If I'm honest with you, there's some signposts there that you might find useful.
Yeah. So someone's put about the loans. No, there is interest, isn't it, on the loans? It's not interest free, is it? It's
No, it's
interest
not
on it.
interest free. It's retail price index that will go up with, so
Retail
it will
price.
go up in line with inflation.
Yeah, okay. So then we're still going down, got still more questions. When both children are at uni, do they both receive an extra student loan amount or just the second child?
So what happens is, and it is, as I said before, it's quite complicated, but I understand why you're asking these questions, because the idea of sending two children to university at the same time would be devastating for our finances at home right now. Um, I don't underestimate that. Um, what we do is, once we assess the sponsor's income, there's a household contribution that's defined, and we divide that between the two students, so they would both receive the same amount of uplift in the maintenance support that they would receive. That happens if you've got a student that's been in university for 2 years, and then the youngest son or daughter arrives in year one. It's exactly the same calculation that's completed.
Okay, lovely. So I think we've answered. Oh no, if your child studies in Scotland, does it make a difference?
No, so you apply for your finance based on where you live. So I live in Llandudno in North Wales, and Hannah goes to university in England. She's funded by Student Finance Wales. If you're living in England, if you're living in Sheffield and you go to university in Scotland, it's still Student Finance England who would fund your student finance and who you would apply to.
Lovely. Some of these are duplicate questions, so I think we've answered them now. If a student leaves before the end of year one, will they carry that that debt of that
The
loan?
tuition fee.
Yeah,
Yeah. So the tuition fee is slightly different to me. The amount that we pay the university is 25% of that funding in term one, 25% in term two, and 50% in term three. So it would only be the amount that the student has studied that they would be within their student loan. What they will have used is that gift year. And before a student withdraws, I would always recommend they either speak to us to understand their future funding, or to the university. The student services teams are brilliant, and they can give you some really good advice on whether or not it's a suspension that may be more appropriate rather than withdrawing, depending on the student circumstances.
lovely. Does the increased maintenance funding also apply if you have children at university in different years?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a split contribution between them, and I really would say it's not a huge amount, but it does recognise that you are, as parents or partner, are supporting more than one student in at university.
lovely. Okay, I think we're coming to the end now. Let's have a look. Just to clarify, the amount of the loan increases by RPI each year. Have I understood that correctly?
No, so sorry, the loan balance, yeah, it's retail price index that includes, yeah.
Yeah,
The maintenance loan, that's all dependent upon a UK government their calculation of whatever the raise in maintenance would be.
lovely. Is it, oh, it moved up, sorry. Is it dependent on taxable and liable income or your gross income before taxes?
So it's taxable income that we look at. We look at your, sorry, no, we look at your gross amount. So we look at your P60, and that's what we would, when the sponsor sponsors the application, we now ask you for a national insurance number. So we just check your income against what you declare to HMRC, and that's where we base our assessment on.
Lovely. If the child attends university but stays at home, so commutes in, would they just apply for tuition funding rather than maintenance?
It's entirely up to the student. There is a maintenance loan that's available for students who stay at home. It's at a slightly lower rate than the elsewhere rate, and that's just that's individual circumstances will dictate whether or not they want to take that maintenance loan or not. You don't have to take the amounts that you're entitled to. The application will ask you, do you want a maintenance loan? Yes or no. Would you like the full amount or a different amount? So you don't even have to take the maximum. Depending on your income threshold, you can choose to take less.
Lovely. So while I'm going to just ask Stephen the last question, my colleague's going to put on a poll just so to answer a couple of questions for us. It's quite simple. It will only take 1 or 2 minutes, well, 1 minute, I think, to answer them. She's just going to load them up onto the screen as we say the last question. So thank you so much for attending. The last question is, are the tuition fees and maintenance loan? Oh, sorry, I've got the votes. Are the tuition fees and maintenance loan combined when it comes to the student paying a single repayment amount from their earnings? And it does make sense, the question.
Yeah, no, I've got it. Yeah. So yeah, your maintenance loan and your tuition fee goes into one loan pot really, and the repayment is based on the combined amount. So you just make one repayment, but you're repaying the tuition fee and the maintenance loan at the same time.
Lovely. I think you have answered all the questions. So I'm just going to share my screen now to put up the final slide. Just to say thank you so much for coming along and listening to Stephen and myself tonight. Obviously, it's all Stephen's hard work. Please, if you do have any further questions after this session, when you go back and watch the recording or watch, read through the slides, please just drop us an email to either this email address on here. You can go onto our website where there's lots of information on there as well that will support you. But if you can sort of fill in that poll as well, because that really helps us to make sure that our sessions are useful and helpful to you and can support you. But thank you so much for joining us this tea time, and we hope that obviously that's answered a lot of your questions. I know that it has been a lot to take in. So as I say, we will be sending out these slides and we'll be sending the recording. It won't be probably for another week or so, but you will get it in sort of the next 10 days. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care.
Thank you. Just